Yeah, if you didn't know, there's a sale on these items here. Okay, kinda cool, I guess, but not the point of this video. We're gonna go over this mid-chapter patch. Remove Dutch and Swedish language support. So, for those of you that speak Dutch and Swedish, I guess you're just shit out of luck. Sorry. What we want to talk about here is the Doctor and primarily this guy right here, a Ruin. The change to Ruin and the implications that this effect has. Okay, so the Gatekeeper emblem is going to be changed, so flatten score value of all remaining generators. So now all generators are worth the same amount, 1 point per minute, regardless of the duration that they remain in the match. Also added an additional score for both gate remaining unopened at the end of the match. So basically, for Gatekeeper, they made it a little easier to score higher with Gatekeeper. Okay, that's cool. That's great. We do need help with Gatekeeper as killer mains. Now, Hex Ruin. All generators are affected by Hex Ruin. So, passive effects, if the generator isn't being worked on, it regresses at 100, 150 to 200% the normal regression rate. So if you kick a generator, this is the same regression rate. So Hex Ruin 1 would be the same regression as if you kicked the generator, right? Passively. So if somebody isn't working on the generator, I guess that this just has a passive regression. Couple problems with this is, one, it's still a totem perk. So it can and will be cleansed. If you are a low rank killer or a low rank survivor, you won't have as much of effect from this. But for the high rank people, rank 1, rank 2, 3, red ranks, this is pretty bad. Like, this is a terrible perk, and in my opinion, a waste of a perk slot if it's changed to this. Because even at those ranks, survivors have no problem hitting Hex skill checks. I also play Survivor. I play both sides of the spectrum, and I am often rank 1 as both. So, I mean, going 2 times faster than your normal regression if you kicked a gen, I mean, that's cool and everything, but that's still fucking slow. Missing a Ruin skill check is more annoying than this. This has a passive effect on all generators. Okay, that's cool, but like, if you're a killer, and let's say, for example, it's late game, there's only 3 gens left on the map to work on, you have 1 generator left, that means there's 3 generators left. Now, if the generators are spread out, this is literally useless. Because say there's still 3 survivors left, that is the potential for 1 survivor to be working on 1 generator. And if these generators are spread out, and they didn't 3-gen themselves, this is literally useless, because all they have to do is work on it, then they hear your terror radius, they're gonna hide, be sneaky, and since 3 generators are being pressured, you don't have time to sit there as a killer and look for this person unless they are in plain sight. This is shit. I don't understand why they feel the need to change this. I mean, for new players, yeah, sure, Ruin is annoying, but some killers kind of need this game slowdown to set up, like Trapper, for example. Now, this would be an okay perk if it still wasn't a Hex perk and didn't rely on a totem. And we all know that some totem spawns are completely garbage, and this Hex, this totem that this perk is in, can sometimes literally last 15 seconds. And then you're down a perk slot for the entirety of the game because this perk is no longer useful. It's just, this isn't fast enough. If they want to make this have a better passive ability, I would think that this needs to be way faster than this. Because 100% is just your normal regression rate, right? So one charge is like 1 second on a generator, so it's like 8 charges to finish, or 80 charges to finish a generator solo. So it's like 80 seconds on a generator solo as a survivor. Your normal regression rate is like, you lose like maybe half a charge or less than half a charge per second. So you kick a gen and you lose less than half a charge per second. This 100% here is still less than half a charge per second. 150% is still less than half, or maybe it's a little more than half a charge per second. Now 200% is probably still less than an entire charge per second. For this to be like an effective perk, it needs to be at least a charge per second. At least. So the only killers that this perk is going to be good on now is going to be like high mobility killers. So this has no early game pressure, basically, like the normal Ruin would do. This would help stall the game at the beginning so that killers like Trapper or the Hag have time to set up. But this change doesn't apply that early game pressure at all. So the only killers you're gonna see this on are high mobility killers, and high mobility killers don't really need Ruin to win, to 4K, to pip. They just don't. So now all the killers that could really benefit from Ruin are missing out on the benefits that Ruin gave them, like your normal killers, like Clown, Pig. Though Pig has her own built-in slowdown, but that's still not enough in most cases, but it is annoying. Michael Myers, for example, doesn't have any benefit of this at the beginning of the game, so it's going to be more difficult for Myers to get out of tier 1 to succeed long game, towards the end of the game. There's a lot of killers that are going to be missing out because of this change. So it's really only going to benefit high mobility killers, because Hex Ruin the new Ruin, according to this change here, is going to need pressure on gens. Now, if you're on a big map and you're not a high mobility killer, you're kind of shit out of luck, because you're not going to be able to pressure all the gens, okay? And if you do pressure, most likely you're going to have to run this with discordance or something, because the only way you'll get benefit out of it is if you're pressuring a gen that is being worked on. And the only way you're going to know if a gen is being worked on is with a couple perks, and that would be Tinkerer, Surveillance, and Discordance. Discordance is probably the best out of all of those perks. Tinkerer has its uses because it has a new effect where the survivors are oblivious for a period of time. That is a nice new little effect to Tinkerer, but it doesn't really help with ruin because the gen is already almost completed and most likely has multiple people on it. So you can only chase one of them at a time. So if you're chasing one of them, the other one's probably going to be a ballsy little bastard and stay on that gen while you're chasing the other person. So this perk becomes useless in that scenario. Now, I understand they don't want to make it like super powerful for the reasons being Billy, Nurse, Spirit, you know, your high mobility killers. But they also need to think about the low mobility killers, the ones that can't really pressure generators as frequently as a high mobility killer can. They're not going to get as much value out of this perk as they used to. It's I don't know. These are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments or whatever, but I'm not really a fan of what I'm seeing here, and it'll probably change after the PTB, but as of right now, I don't really care for it. They're gonna have to change this percentage, and end of that. Okay, rainbow maps will track chests if revealed by a perk that shows chest. Okay? Alright, whatever. I don't really care about that at all. The Oni, remove turn speed limitation on Demon Strike. Implemented a hard cap on the turn angle during Demon Strike. Okay, this might be good for people that play Oni. I haven't really played much Oni, so I don't know a whole lot about that. Now, the Doctor. This is interesting. Remove treatment mode and the static field VFX. The Doctor will no longer need to switch stances to use shock therapy or to use a regular attack. Okay. Added Doctor-specific chase music. That is good. I think every killer should have their own chase music, as they are different killers. So, yeah. Whatever. Added a new special ability, Static Blast, as the secondary power. See below for more information. Added a 3-second cooldown to shock therapy. This means it will take 3 seconds before the Doctor can hit with his primary weapon. Use shock therapy or use Static Blast. So now there is a 3-second cooldown to shock therapy. So you can't just continually sit there and shock people over and over and over again. I mean, I guess that's cool, but wouldn't that make it a little harder to cut people off on pallet loops with your shock therapy? Doctor's already really susceptible to being looped, which is why he's a weak killer. This makes it worse, by the way. Increase the base range of shock therapy by 10%. That's a decent percentage, I guess. But a 3-second cooldown per shock therapy, I don't know. I don't think that's the best way to go about doing it. Range increasing add-ons no longer increase the width of the shock therapy, only the length. See the add-on changes below for more information. Reduce charging move speed to 67% normal from 70% normal to keep the speed the same at 3.08 meters per second. That is slow, but so you're reducing his charge movement speed, and you are also adding a 3-second cooldown to his shock therapy. Not looking good for pallet loops, dude. Madness regresses while outside the terror radius and does not regress while inside it. Okay, so does this mean if you're in lockers it doesn't regress? Does it stop moving like if you're in a locker? Not sure. That's not specified. Because I know if you're in a locker and you're inside of his terror radius, your madness does not increase. But so they changed this so he doesn't have to be in treatment mode to make your madness increase. Don't know. This doesn't seem any different than what it was. Because your madness doesn't regress if you're in his terror radius. Anyways. So why... whatever. I don't know why they're saying that. Unless it does regress if you're in his terror radius, but he's not in treatment mode, I don't know. I think they need to specify on this. Order. Class 1 add-on slightly increases the madness inflicted by static blast. Okay, so Order gets a buff. Moderately increases the madness inflicted by static blast. Again, buff for class 1 and 2. Carter's notes. Another Order class considerably increases the madness, so another buff to madness. Calm. Slightly increases the terror radius while static blast is ready. Slightly decreases terror radius while static blast is on cooldown. I mean, I guess that's a buff. Class 2, same thing. Calm. Carter's notes. Considerably increases terror radius while static blast is ready. So the same thing as with the calm classes. Moldy Electrode add-on slightly increases charge time and attack range of shock therapy. So it increases charge time. Now if you play Nurse, you're going to understand that this is bad. And attack range. So now they're nerfing Moldy Electrode, essentially. Not to mention nerfing Moldy Electrode, but they're also adding a 3-second cooldown, which is bad. Two bad things, in my opinion. Now the Polished Electrode moderately increases charge time, bad. Attack range, good. But now there's a downside to having this add-on. High Stimulus add-on considerably increases charge time and attack range. Okay, so they've just made this like the new Nurse range add-ons, and they're gonna be garbage, basically. Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Who knows? Probably garbage because it's already getting a base 10% increase, which is pretty much what the Moldy Electrode did. But I think the Moldy Electrode added way more because his base charge was pretty shit as far as distance. High Stimulus add-on. Okay. Yeah, we already went through that. Interview tape add-on. Rarity changed from uncommon to rare. So they made that more difficult to obtain in the Blood Web. I don't know why. This isn't like the greatest add-on. Obedience. Carter's notes. Rarity changed from very rare to rare, so it's easier to attain. Skill checks have a considerable chance to turn counterclockwise for survivors with Madness 2 or 3. So, counterclockwise skill checks. They've talked about this. That's cool, and it's gonna throw you off as a survivor, making impossible skill check build more impossible. Just that much more impossible. Scraped tape. Scrapped tape. Name change to Iridescent Queen. Rarity changed from uncommon to ultra rare. So now he has the Iridescent King and the Iridescent Queen. Survivors hit with shock therapy or static blast acquire a lingering static charge. If a survivor with static charge is within 4 meters of another survivor, the survivor receives a shock with identical effects as the shock therapy and static blast. Now that is actually quite interesting, and I would actually really like to see that implemented, because that seems like a pretty cool add-on. It's like a... yeah, you shock somebody with it, and then they go work on a gen with somebody else, and they get shocked too. That's a good way to passively build up madness within everybody, and we all know that as Doctor that can be a challenge. Iridescent King add-on, shock therapy and static blast causes survivor to gain a random madness affliction. This is kind of already what it's done. It just kind of picked between all the different classes at any given time for each survivor. Renamed the shock therapy score event to pacified. Okay. That doesn't affect gameplay or anything. Added a score event for hitting survivors with static blast. Tranquilized. Okay. We are now animals in the safari being hunted and tranquilized by tranq darts, I guess. Static blast is a new mechanic for the Doctor. We removed the treatment mode and the ability to switch between modes. The Doctor will always be able to hit with his primary weapon, use shock therapy, which now has a 3-second cooldown, and can use static blast. Static blast takes 2 seconds to activate and has a 60-second cooldown. So the effects of it, so a whopping 60-second cooldown, takes 2 seconds to activate. The Doctor's static blast causes all survivors within his terror radius to gain 50 madness points. I'm not sure if that's a lot or not, but I would assume that that's a lot of madness points. The Doctor will laugh if the static blast affects any survivor. So basically the static blast affects his entire terror radius. Got it. Affected survivors will scream. They give away their location if their madness level increases. So if it increases from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, it's a scream. Survivors outside the terror radius hear a direction neutral audio cue when the ability is being charged and when it fires. Survivors inside the terror radius hear direction revealing audio cues for the charge and fire of the ability. So outside of the terror radius you can't tell where it's coming from. Inside the terror radius you can. Scoring event for hitting survivors. So blood points. Okay. So my understanding is these, from what I can gather in here, is that the static blast only affects the terror radius of the killer. So it's not map wide as I assumed it was before. But the entire terror radius is quite huge. And depending on what map you are on the game, it's pretty much map wide on the game, so this will be extremely annoying on the game. Probably, I wouldn't say that it's more annoying than playing against a Doctor on the game already is, but you're gonna be screaming a lot more, that's for sure. Snap out of it adjustments, missing a skill check will regress the progression bar by a quarter instead of all the way, so it's gonna be like healing. Skill checks will trigger at every quadrant of the progress bar, so 4 times it will trigger. Releasing the snap out of it action will keep the progress made instead of resetting. That's good because snapping out of it is really fucking annoying, so they made it a little easier for the survivor to snap out of it. Send survivor to madness tier 1 instead of tier 2, so they made it go further because of the static blast buff being 50 madness points, which I would just assume that that is a lot. I guess I'm gonna have to go back on my movement speed thing here. This isn't that huge of a deal, really. And this is obviously good. The increased range by 10%. Stock. 3 seconds, so since you don't have to switch between the two and you can always hit, I guess a 3-second cooldown doesn't really make it much difference because the time it takes you to switch, so it's pretty much the same. So he's still, it seems like he's getting a little bit of a buff. It's not like a huge buff or anything, but definitely probably see more doctors playing, which is good, I guess. This is good. I like the snap out of it adjustments, those are good. Treatment Theater map update. Completely reworked the visible look and feel of the map, made the map darker. That's nice. Changed the layout to be more rectangular than square. Added flickering signs in the hallways near rooms that spawn generators. That will help you find generators. That is good. Hide totems better. Better totem spawns. Okay. That's good for killer, I guess, even though totems are kind of already a pain in the ass to find on that map. Anyways, depending on the spawn, I mean, I guess there's a lot of pretty shitty spawns too. Like, right on one of the outside edges of the map or right next to a generator would be one of them that are shitty. Balance the distribution and safety of pallets. That is one thing that sucks on Treatment Theater, is a lot of the pallets on that map are not safe at all. So I would hope that they add more safe pallets, because there's a whole lot of not safe pallets. And yeah, but I guess it kind of makes up because there's a lot of like double window vaults that you can abuse. But the thing about those vaults is they aren't necessarily safe either, because there is mind game potential to them, so a lot of them are 50-50. Anyways, balance the distribution of hooks, so the hooks probably aren't going to be as close together as they were, because like hooks are literally everywhere in that map. Balance the distribution and safety of vaults. Okay, so some of those walls they're gonna change. Okay, I don't really want to go into all of these other issues here, all these bugs, because this game has a lot of bugs, and they fix some, and then they come out with a new killer, and then that killer has bugs. Here's an idea, and here's something that really annoys me as a nurse main. Fix the fucking bugs with those damn statues on the new Oni map, because that shit is fucking cancer. I can't blink through it. It's trash. Fix it. Actually, I'm gonna just go in here and just double check that that is in here. Okay. Fix an issue that causes Wraith and the Spirit to have the reappearance lunge speed burst. Fixed an issue that could cause the Nightmare to be unable to place dream snares if stunned while placing one. Fixed an issue that caused the Trapper to not to properly trigger his own bear traps when set by Iridescent Stone add-on. Fixed an issue that caused the Doctor's Iridescent King add-on to not always apply its 5 afflictions within 5 shocks. In addition to this bug fix, we also added scoring events for feedback on which afflictions were applied. Fixed an issue that caused survivors to block a part of the hag's screen when performing a basic attack while carrying a survivor. Fixed an issue that allowed the hag, the hillbilly, the Demogorgon to interact with cleansed totem debris. That's a weird bug. Fixed an issue that caused the ghost face to see inside assets when attacking while a survivor on their shoulder. Okay. Inside assets. Oh, yeah, show me all your inside assets. I love your insides. Anyways, so yeah, they didn't put anything about Nurse and how she can't blink through those fucking statues on the new Oni map. Fix it, please. That would be great. I don't know if it's just on console, but if it is, please fix it. If it's on PC as well, then you should definitely fix it. But I assume that there isn't a lot of people playing Nurse anymore after her massive nerf and rework, which I will do another video on since there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of substance on it. I am pretty heated about her Nerf, by the way. They really did not need to change everything that they did. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video.